It's Saturday, September 19th, and boy, do we have a great interview for you today. Joining me shortly on the phone is Dave Thorpe, longtime teacher and coach here at East Bakersfield High School, class of 1979. So this week's Blade Family Reunion is going to feature a good one. I hope you enjoy listening to Dave tell some of his stories and relate what it means to him to be a part of this Blade family. Thank you all for listening, and remember, this is a labor of love. We are going to be establishing scholarships based on donations from our listeners to this podcast. Those scholarships will go toward a principal scholarship for college and also scholarships for summer programs for our students. I hope to get these scholarships established for the class of 21 and also for the additional classes that are here to enjoy some summer enrichment programs to make the best blades we can make. Our community, I think, is getting better and better day by day, and I hope you'll help us do that. Take care, love you all, and go Blades. It's Saturday, September 18th, and with me today on the phone is Dave Thorpe. Dave Thorpe is a graduate of East High. Dave, what year did you graduate?
1979.
Class of 1979. Today we're going to get a chance to learn a little bit about Coach Thorpe and his association with East High and get to know him a little bit better, and hopefully some of the other class of 1979 students who went to school with them and our current students and just Blade alumni in general will connect with some of his story. So Coach, how are you doing with the pandemic and all? How are things?
We're doing well. I've got one daughter on the East Coast in New York, upstate New York, and I've got another daughter in Portland on the West Coast. And then I've got a son who is distance learning as a junior at Frontier. So everybody's a little spread out, but we're doing well. We keep in contact with each other, and I think we're doing as well as anyone can right now.
You're all healthy?
Yes, pretty much. Little bad air causes a little, irritation, but
yeah,
allergies and stuff. But other than that, no, we're, knock on wood, we're doing great.
Good. That's great to hear. So, as is the case with the first podcast, I'm reaching out to alumni who are on this current staff at East Bakersfield High School. So, you were our second highest tenured graduate, I think, is how we were trying to figure this out. In other words, last week I talked to Mr. Fuentes. I believe he graduated in 78, 1 year before you.
Anthony was a high school friend of mine.
Okay.
He was a year older, but he was on our football team and always a good dude, and so it's kind of fun to be able to teach with him all these years.
Oh, I bet. So how long have you been on the staff at East High?
I believe, 10 or 11 years. My first 15 years, I was at a satellite program for behavior problem kids called Constellation. And then my last 10 years or 11 years, whatever it's been, has been at East.
So just to clarify for folks who haven't heard from you or talked to you in a while, that means you're a special education teacher. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah,
I'm a special ed teacher.
Okay. So as part of this interview process, I ask the interviewees 5 questions. Some of this is to relate back to our graduates, our alumni students, and some of it is to connect to current students. So hopefully these questions will resonate across our viewing audience or listening audience. So the first question is, what teacher or staff member made the biggest difference in your EB high school education? And this is not a class. This is a specific person.
As Anthony probably would say, there were so many different ones. It's hard to narrow it down, but I'd have to say Phyllis Agalos, my English teacher, was my biggest influence. My first career, I was a sports writer for the Californian, an editor and a columnist and reporter, and she was the one that pulled me aside and said, "You've got a talent here, and you should use it." And so I listened for once, and she was a huge influence for me. And Yeah, great person, great lady.
That's awesome to hear. So the second question kind of follows up on that, but
Okay, can I talk about her just for a
yeah,
sec?
absolutely, of course.
She was considered really gruff and mean, and was one of those old school teachers. And I was a cut up in class, and this was between I believe my sophomore. It was my sophomore year, and we would do essays, and I would finish first, and then I would disturb the class. So she thought I was cheating. So I told her I wasn't, but I was kind of a cut up, so she didn't believe me. So she had me write an essay in front of her by myself, and I did. And then she was like, "Oh, you can do this, and Guy, you have a knack for this. Why don't you pursue it?" So that is actually how I got into writing, was by screwing around in class.
So
And then I became the editor of the sports editor of the yearbook.
wow, okay. So
So
through your teacher reached out to you and took that extra time to get to know you a little bit and get to know you academically.
yeah, and I
that
think she
intervention.
did it because she wanted to discipline me and teach me a lesson, and she ended up teaching a bigger lesson to me than she could have ever realized.
That's awesome.
Opened
awesome.
my eyes, so to speak.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So the second question is connected to this, and it is, what was your favorite class in high school?
Oh gosh. Well, English was my worst class, and then it became kind of my favorite. But I also liked the yearbook class, and I liked student government. I was involved in student government.
How so? What did you do in student government?
I was a senior class president, and involved in homecoming. I was the yearbook sports editor, so I was involved in photography and writing and all these things that I never thought I would do in high school. I thought, I'd play some ball and, didn't really know what I was going to do. And that's kind of how all that evolved from that.
Yeah,
So
I think that's an interesting point. I mean, your favorite classes were all academic classes, and kind of stretch academic classes that took you away from athletics a little bit. But
yeah.
but you were involved in several other endeavors beyond the playing field.
Yes. Yes, I was. And I really enjoyed my first career as a journalist, but I just, I had the coaching bug, and I liked working with kids. At the time, I was a Jack Frost coach. This is 30 plus years ago, and I, my wife and I, when we were dating, we decided, and we were going to get married, we decided we'd change our careers together, because she wanted to teach elementary school, and we love kids, and it just gave me a chance to, be around kids more and be a mentor as a coach. And so that's kind of how that evolved. But I didn't think that academics would be my thing entering high school, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's very cool. And so I haven't said this because, I'm new at this and I make assumptions from time to time that I probably shouldn't, but what did you coach? So you've said that you got the coaching bug. Clearly you were an athlete in high school as well. What and where did you coach?
Well, I've coached off and on at East since the earlier mid 90s. I came with Rick Van Horn, who was a teammate of mine at Bakersfield College, and we became good friends, and we played college football and baseball together, and were rivals in high school, and we all came together and just kind of started coaching there. And then I went, when Liberty opened up, I went there for 3 years, the first 3 years of their program. And it was really a unique experience, but my daughter at the time was a sophomore at East, my oldest daughter, who's 35 now, 36. And I just missed her, and I missed East. I can remember that I would drive home from football practice from Liberty, which was out in the middle of nowhere back then, to the east side, and I lived right by East, grew up right by East, but I would park on the college little, by the fence, by the football field, and I'd watch her practice in the band, because that was the only time during the day I got to see her.
Uh-huh.
So I said, I told Rick, hey, I'm going to go back to East and coach there because my kid's there and I love East. And then I coached with Jim Maples there, and, we were part of a section championship team. And then when Jeff Chudy got hired at BC, I went up there and I spent 10, 12 years, I guess, up there at BC. And then I came back to East 10 years ago to be the head coach, and what a great experience that was. And a highlight of that was our 75th anniversary.
Right, yeah.
And so I was able to, one of my proudest moments was as a Blade was I was able to take my football team through the halls and meet people, and they got to meet Mrs. DeArmond, who was my math teacher. And if
that's awesome.
People don't know that, Mrs. DeArmond, she was a crack up, but there's a building named after her at our school now. It's a math building, but I was a TA in her class, and, she loved athletes. And so for me to, be around and get to see her, and Mary Kay Shell, who I grew up, she was around our neighborhood growing up, and it was just a neat thing to be a part of the head coach deal. And now it's off to the younger guys.
Right,
Let them do it. But it's been quite a ride at East High.
That's awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Coaching wise. And in fact, I don't mean to chew your ear off, but
no, please.
So a story the guys that I grew up might appreciate. I was in 4th grade, and my association really had begun before that with East High, because I lived a block away, so we would play on the fields and try to hit home runs and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to be the water boy in 4th grade. And so I went to the C-class coach, who said, I don't know, and I just kept bugging him, and he finally let me be the water boy. And I have to tell you that water boys were true water boys back then. We had a pail that we filled up with water from a hose, and we had a big ladle, and I would run out to the huddle during games, and they would have this ladle, and they would take water, and my job was not to spill the water, going out there. And so that started my association with East High football, I guess, right there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes. A lot of history.
That's so cool. So what is your favorite high school memory? But you've got a lot, but I think there's going to be a story here, so I want to hear it.
Oh, there's going to be a story. I debate whether to tell it or not, but it was just fun. It was the 70s, and if you're familiar with East High, there's tunnels that go all the way to the, at one time, I believe they're blocked off now or something, but they went all the way to the hospital, and the rumor was that it was haunted, and it was an old Army fallout shelter. And then you got to remember, in the 70s, it was a time when Vietnam had just ended, and it was kind of a weird time, in America. And so we, and back then at East, there was just a door to the tunnels. And not everybody knew about these doors, but of course we did. So we would sneak into the tunnels during school with squirt guns. And we would have giant squirt gun fights. And in these tunnels, there was lights, with the little cage around them like they did in the 40s. There was rations of Del Monte peas and all sorts of canned goods.
Yeah, MREs. You can still find some down there. MREs.
Yeah, there was all sorts of stuff. And so, there was about 4 or 5 of us, and we would go in and we'd pick teams, and we'd have squirt gun fights down there, and then we would scare each other because we would hide, and and then squirt some, all of a sudden you feel something hitting your face and it scares the heck out of you. But so we would explore the tunnel. So of all memories, I think that might be the most unique one.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of questions that I think are for our current students, and maybe even the alumni students, that I think are the rubber meets the road questions that I ask. The first one is, what is the piece of advice, if you could go back and give yourself right before you started your freshman year, what piece of advice would that be?
Oh, boy. It's such an awkward time in your life, and everybody goes through it. It's, things move real fast, and sometimes you feel like everything's swirling around you. It's just so different than junior high.
Right.
I think the one advice I would have given to myself would have been maybe to slow down and listen more. It took me 2 years to be able to hold a baseball bat like my coach wanted me to and relax. So I finally start hitting the ball, and then all of a sudden it clicked. It was like Mrs. Agalos, who drilled in my head, and I didn't think I liked to write. Then all of a sudden, it clicked. And so I guess I would have slowed down and listened earlier,
And what advice would you share with kids now?
Now?
Yeah, you see them coming in. Our freshmen coming in now. What advice would you give an incoming freshman today?
Well, again, things are going to go fast. Things are going to swirl around you. You're going to feel awkward. It's part of the process. And I guess the one piece of advice I would give would be to sometimes you have to slow down to go fast.
Yeah.
I think would be my piece of advice.
Awesome. And I think this question, I love asking this question to you guys. What does it mean to you to be a Blade?
Well, oh gosh, I mean, let's start with, I bleed red, I mean, I played on those fields as a kid, dreaming about being a Blade and dreaming about being a Renegade. That's what you did back then. And, both those dreams came true for me. And then to come back and not only be, part of the staff, but, part of the football program in a pretty involved way. I mean, you're talking over 20 years of my coaching career involved East or coaching Jack Frost on that campus. What does it mean to me? Like I told you before, being an ex-senior class president, I would always seek out the newly elected president. I still do, the newly elected senior class president, just to have a chat with them, because they're kind of, surprised that gruff old Coach Thorpe was actually involved in student government. So just so many things. What does it mean to be a Blade? it means everything to me.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've been really, blessed to be a part of this. And, like any family, you're going to have bumps along the way, and it's a learning process. And I've learned a lot through my years being involved with East, being involved with East kids, East parents, the East Side community. And it's just I'm just blessed with to see guys like Varel or Fuentes or, Elise or any of these, Moss and any of these people, around, to see a lot of my ex-players that are, on our staff. You got Eddie and Daniel and, the big buff police officer who I'm glad is on my side, the twins, and they're, it really means a lot to me. I don't think I always appreciated it as much as I should have, but again, that's a life learning process. And, like I said, I'm blessed. I want to end my career here, and, it's a good day to be a Blade, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah. Well, that's every day, and
yeah.
I will tell you, I am blessed. I feel blessed to have you on our staff. I will say this without going into a lot of details. I'm just going to inform everyone. Coach Thorpe's current teaching assignment, he really does take care of and educate some of our neediest students in the high school district on our campus. And what he does with our students is just absolutely amazing. And I cherish the fact that I have him on my staff for that reason, in addition to his ability to mentor kids and coach. Just the teaching component is just absolutely amazing at what you do at our school.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. My approach isn't always, standard, I guess. It would be a good way to say it. But, sometimes kids need an honest view of themselves,
right,
so to speak.
Right. Yep.
So that's great.
Coach, you have anything else you want to share with our listening audience before we hit the stop button?
Just take it easy. It's a time that's really different than anything we've experienced, and be fortunate that you have a family, an extended family with us Blades. We're here, we care, and we don't always, go about things the right way, but our intentions are always good and always with you young kids in mind. So that's really the truth. I really believe that.
Awesome. I don't know if I could have said it better.
Well, I'm sure you could.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Leo.
Take care.
Have a great day. Am I done?
You are. I'm hitting the stop button right now.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Well, I hope you enjoyed visiting with Dave Thorpe for a little bit. Like I said, Coach Thorpe has some great stories, and I hope you enjoyed listening to him as much as I enjoyed interviewing him. Before we say goodbye for this week, a couple of corrections. I'm having trouble with my 8s and 9s. The interview did happen on Saturday, September 19th. I think I said 18th when I was talking to Coach Thorpe. And also last week I confused 8s and 9s too. I said I was the 8th principal. There have been 8 other principals at EB. I am the 9th principal at East Bakersfield High School. I just want to make sure I make the record clear. When you make a mistake, you got to clarify it. I hope you enjoyed this week's Blade Family Reunion. Take care. I love you all. And as always, go Blades.